Hi, and welcome to Magic Numbers, and this is episode number 94. And today we have a dive into personal data of someone that generates a lot of it, Pasta Pirate. Hi, Pasta Pirate. How are
Hey
you?
there. Thanks you so much for having me on. It's just my absolute honor to be here with you.
Okay, before we move into the main topic, which is the only topic today, really, the personal data of Pasta Pirate. Obviously, thanks to all my patrons and to my sponsor, mtgazone.com. So thanks for that. You got some extra perks if you do subscribe to the Patreon. You can get, for example, access to those slides. Don't worry, Pasta Pirate, you're going to get it on the cheek. I'm going to send you the link. So I would like to welcome you. And also, while I'm welcoming you, I would like to stress one particular reason why I invited you today. And it's basically this number. This is the leaderboard of all the formats that Arena had in the last whatever years that 17 Lens was aggregating this data. And you're number one in terms of number of matches won. And that means you played a lot of games. That must be over 20,000 games played. And you do regularly post over 1,000 wins for every single format, which means your data set is large enough to actually have some numbers that are significant and that you can draw conclusions from. I could take my own personal data set and it would be very bad because most of the cards would have just too small sample sizes and that would not be enough to draw some solid conclusions. But in your case, we can actually look through that. And couple of other numbers in your personal statistics are interesting, and we will maybe try to figure out why certain numbers are like this and how maybe we can improve some of those numbers. And we can reach that by chatting together and figuring out where are the problems, where are the opportunities in terms of your personal data. Happy with that?
Sounds great to me.
So I will start with maybe like a warm up. Could you introduce yourself first of all and tell you who you are and how come you draft so much? And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Magic background was about 7 years ago. My friends taught me to play kitchen table. It was very casual. Those friends moved away, and so I picked up Arena. And I was playing Constructed for a while. Around then was when I started streaming, and I just wasn't really happy doing that, and realized that it was because I was a limited player all along, and I just needed to be drafting. And so I really started drafting seriously in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, and then I downloaded 17 Lands and started tracking my data for Dominaria United. Yeah, so that's my Magic background.
Cool. Where are you based, if I may ask?
Oh, so sorry. Yeah.
No, it's just like it looks always awesome when you're streaming when you're sitting outside. So I was wondering where is home?
I'm lucky enough to call Weaverville, North Carolina, home. It's Western North Carolina, so just kind of tucked in the mountains, and it's a lovely place to live. I stream from my porch, and yeah, when the weather is nice, it's a lovely time.
Yeah, that's just, it's a bit strange to me because obviously not being American, for me, North Carolina, when I think about it, I'm thinking like barrier islands and sea and oysters. And then I look through your stream, it looks like more like Montana because it's just mountains, snow, and
Sure.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So cool to put you somewhere on the map. Okay, where are you hoping? What are you hoping to get out from looking at your own personal data? Like, what are your expectations coming to this stream?
Right. So I guess to address the elephant in the room, my win rate and trophy rate leave something to be desired, and I think a lot of that has been from my own personal approach of just brute forcing, and obviously I consume a lot of content. I'm not just isolating myself in terms of content, but I do try to put a lot of emphasis on and. Um, emphasis on myself for just putting in the work and playing the game. So yeah, I think from that I've garnered quite a few poor results, but I've learned a lot in the process.
Yeah, that's actually interesting that you say that you think that your trophy rate should be higher. I actually looked at your numbers, and one of the parts that interested me to have you as a potential guest was that I came to the conclusions that your trophy rate should be lower. judging by the win rate.
Interesting.
And
It's
actually too high from what your win rate is suggesting, which means to me that you're doing something right, but you're also doing something wrong that will lower your win rate in general. But my first hypothesis, and we're going to test that hypothesis with quite a lot of scrutiny, is, I don't watch that much streaming. I sometimes watch your streams, but if I have like a minute of time and I can watch some streams, I probably will watch Corticals because he's exactly
sure.
on my time.
Sure.
But I did watch some of your streams. I didn't watch enough of them to make my hypothesis confirmed, but I looked at your data, which sort of will tell the whole story. My hypothesis initially was that you are probably overforcing one or two archetypes. And because of that, when you land on them and they are open, you're going to trophy much more frequently than win rate would suggest.
Yes.
But also you will have a lot of train wrecks when you're forcing a color that when it's not open and you end up on a poorer version of the deck. And I think that we're going to go through the data and try to see if that hypothesis has any kind of legs. Okay. So this is another question that I'm asking, and it's during which set did you level the most up as a player? So when do you have like biggest epiphanies, and maybe share them with the people? What were your biggest like limited discoveries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just to probably go from win rate alone, I probably have to start in like Marching Machine, which was my first Premier Draft set where I was able to finish at over a 50% win rate. So yeah, I'd probably have to say March. And following that was Lord of the Rings at a 50% win rate. So I think my level up came before those sets. I think it was doing a lot of forcing in like Phyrexia OLB1. I think that was a very impactful set for me because I was playing around a lot with land count and I think I found a lot of ways to not build the deck correctly. And so from that, I think moving forward, I was able to kind of use that as my baseline to level up.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the point. People think that you level up most when you do things right, but actually advancement in your gameplay is going to be by figuring out that you're doing something wrong. And that's going to be so much more frequent. And people focus on success and they focus on, oh, I won with this, therefore I figured something out. But actually it's by losing and figuring out why you're losing that you are leveling up. So you have at least the right attitude towards how to level yourself up in Limited. So here is some of your numbers. I did look at your data spanning from the 5th of September to the 12th of October. In that time, you played 300 drafts. So that is, give or take that you had a couple of days off, roughly 9-10 drafts a day, which is insane.
Quite a bit.
You played around 1,700 games in that time. You drafted 12,354 cards in that time. That was logged by 17 lands. You also had a 50.1% win rate during the format. I think that if you look at the leaderboard, you have it slightly higher. So you must have been on a burner last couple of days that I don't have in my data set. You've drawn 25,893 cards in that time. That's slightly above 45 kilos in paper of pure cardboard if you would be lifting it. So Arena saved you quite a lot of physical activity. Although I know that in your case, it's not completely true because you sometimes do push-ups when you lose. Is that true? Is that still true?
That is true. 10 push-ups per loss. And then it doubles down for the O3s. Those are bad.
Wow. That's that's at least you're very fit by the sheer amount of the games that you play. So these are the numbers that we're going to look through, and just to give an impression, 300 drafts is already like a decent sample size. So we're quite happy to see that. And I generally divide those kind of presentations when I look at someone's personal data into two sections. One part will be about draft portion, and we're going to do that first. And the second part is going to be about game portion. So in the draft portion, I'm going to look at the cards that you drafted the most, cards that made your deck the most, and cards that you take the most frequently when you've seen them. and that's going to be the main focus of those things. So, without further ado, which cards do you think that you drafted the most? And that's just how many times did you draft the card, and only commons for this, the first slide.
Yeah, this is not particularly difficult. So, like we were saying, when I find an archetype that sticks, I like to stick to it. And for this particular format, it's been rats. So, like I was saying, it's generally just comes down to at common, it's rat producers or rat enhancers. And rat producers are very important, specifically rat catcher trainee, voracious vermin, and edgewall pack. And the rat enhancers are gnawing crescendo, basically.
Okay, let's take a look, because I have 10 cards each, so for each category. So we should find some of those cards. And your top four is Ratcatcher Trainee, Edgewell Park, Knowing Crescendo, Voracious Vermin. So you know what you're doing. Let's be fair. We have also Harried Spearguard here.
Can't forget it. Yeah.
You also have a Scarecrow Guide.
Oh, for Splashing Recruiter.
Frequently, but you also don't play it. I guess that you pick it speculatively most of the time, because that was the card I remember that you played it maybe like half of the time that you picked it. So, yeah. And unlike Ratcatcher Trainee, which has shocking numbers, to be fair, in terms of how frequently you put it in your deck. We also have Wicked Visitor, Warehouse Tabby. They will all be like maybe in the less successful version of your rat deck when you have to put them in.
Yes.
Gingerbrute, that makes sense, and Rat Out that also makes sense in this. So that's a bunch of things that are cheap, except for Edgewell Park, which puts 2 bodies on the board. So very much red and black. So now let's talk about uncommons.
Okay, so this one is a little probably controversial. There's a few bonus sheet cards that I know that some content creators are fairly down on, specifically impact trimmers. It's a card that I've found is actually, when the deck comes together, it's a fairly devastating effect on the game. But yeah, my top uncommons are, it's got to be Twisted Sewer Witch, probably Fairy Dream Thief, and then impact trimmers.
Wrong.
I messed up. The Tremors, the Dream Thief.
It was the Witch first, then the Tremors, and then the Dream Thief.
Yeah,
quite
right.
well. You also have Tottentants there, and you also have Lord Skitter's Butcher, and Tattered Ratter, and Vampiric Rites, and Callous Sorcerer. Hearth Elemental, which is maybe slightly more surprising, but I know that this card goes slightly late, and it's a good card, don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And it's even good in the rat decks, no problem, as a top end of some sorts. When you run out of cards, you just play the adventure part, and then you cast it, and then you got 2 extra cards for the next turn. And Embred Veteran, which is always good as in any aggro kind of shell.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely the Twisted Sewer Witch is striking as a number 1 card, because this one is not so easy to pick. Impact Tremors you can get on the wheel most of the time. This is the kind of a card that you always will have access to. But Twisted Sewer Witch, you definitely prioritize it very highly.
I don't pass her. She doesn't get passed very often. It's just basically the sheer amount of damage that's available with multiple Twisted Sewer Witches is that stacks up really quickly, especially if you have a Wicked Visitor and the Warehouse Tabby. That's where that build kind of comes in.
Okay, that's your little mini combos there that you're adding.
Because then you've got the both of your Wicked rolls that are switching and giving you value.
Maybe you should start playing more of the Not Dead After All with that, because that basically counts as a second that's Sewer Witch. Okay, well, we had there. Which cards, when you drafted them, almost always made the deck? And I think that I increased the number for you. I think it's maybe over the cards that were drafted more than 20 times at least, so that because otherwise you would get all those cards that you drafted 3-4 times and you put them every single time. So I trimmed those down a bit. So cards that you played quite regularly that always made the deck. So what do you think would those cards be?
The cards that I won't cut are rat producers.
And this is sorry. I think that this is only at common. I have to check it in the bloody other window, because Can I do it? No. Okay. Well, we'll see we'll see where we're coming from. Maybe it's only commons. Maybe it's all the cards. If it's all the cards, then guess commons first.
Sure. Yeah, I like I said, I just approaching this question from the angle of what do I cut, if I need to cut something, and I won't ever cut a rat producer from a rat deck. So yeah, so it would almost certainly just be rat producers.
Okay. Like, first of all,
okay,
the
so
rare.
it's oh nice. Okay, looks like I'm a rare drafter.
Well, you will never cut those rares because they are the rares that are also in the rat colors, I guess.
That's a
but
good
we have
point.
the Spectre of Mortality, the 3/3 that you can exile creatures from graveyard to give all the creatures on the battlefield -X/-X. You played it probably like 10 times and it always made the deck. Same with the Decadent Dragon. I mean,
Oh, it's just too good.
A black-red rare that you would put in your deck. Red Cup Gutter Dweller and Godric also always made your deck. This makes sense.
Yeah.
These cards, I'm not shocked that they are so hyped. You have to play some strong, powerful cards. Surprising a bit, the Witch's Vanity always made your deck.
Rectangles.
It's rectangles. It's cheap interaction. It clears the path for your rats. Although I think that if I would be playing like this kind of a deck that you want to be playing, I would maybe prioritize it slightly less. Mainly because your problem is not with small creatures. These ones you're going to eat by attacking with superior.
Yeah.
But decks like yours, they might need something like on the top end. Like Witchstalker's Frenzy is great because that kills big things. But
Right.
maybe even the 5 mana removal that kills something and puts a wicked roll on something. That kind of card, because you play 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, kill something, swing, and they're dead, more or less.
Exactly, yeah.
But Witch's Vanity has a problem that you have to play it when you can be playing a creature at that stage. So sometimes it will compete. I always found that it's a very strong card, but it has problems it's worse in aggressive decks than it is in controlling decks.
It is, yeah. The main utility is flashing in rat out, select no target. Let's say your opponent doesn't play anything, you flash in rat out turn 1, turn 2 you can or later on, once you've got a few extra bodies, the wicked roll does it can add some damage, but yeah, I would agree. For the most part, I think this is a symptom of drafting it early, thinking I might go into green black, and then just realizing, oh, I don't have enough removal for my red black deck. I guess it makes a cut.
Yeah, well, 97% of the cut it makes your deck, so you clearly love that card. What else do we have there? Evolving Wilds, you almost always play it when you pick it. Do you always play it in your black-red decks?
In a 2-color deck, I don't cut Evolving Wilds. Yeah, I've basically come to the conclusion that I draft strong enough decks for the most part that if I can play my cards, I will do much better than if I can't. And yeah, I guess just hedging against, color screw is important at the very low cost of drafting a land.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, some of the decks when I play super aggressive strategies, if I have like 4, 5, 6 1-drops, I will be thinking hard about putting Evolving Wilds in the deck because it does compete with playing this 1-drop, and then it's hard to find a spot on your mana curve to play it. So sometimes, not super frequently, but when I'm playing like those ultra aggressive with multiple 1-drops, I might be not playing Evolving Wilds into color decks. If I don't have that many 1-drops, I'm going to definitely play it. But maybe that's something to consider. Of course, if you're playing black-red and you're splashing the Recruiter, then no brainer.
I think that's certainly something to do with it. Is I usually pick it highly, just like the Scarecrow guide, where I'm hedging for potentially splashing some sort of powerful card.
Then we have Agatha's Champion, Torch the Tower. Agatha's Champion being slightly off because you mainly play those black and red cards. Here we have a green one. Yeah. But I assume that if you pick it, then you're going to go towards the food archetype.
It's a 2-for-1. I can't turn it down.
Oh no, definitely you can't. Ratcatcher Trainee, Imminent Recruiter, Totentans, Lord Skitter's Butcher, Edgewolpack, Tattered Ratter, High Fey Negotiator, Welcome to Sweet Tooth Tangled Colony, Cut In, and Threadbind Clique for some reason. But what is more interesting for me is that I've done this kind of content several times for different players, and in their sample sizes, 90%, here you end up with 95% of the times you pick Threadbind Clique, you play it. Most other players I looked at, 90% was good enough to make top 10 of the cards. And in your case, 95% is enough to make top 20. So you are definitely the kind of a player that when you pick the card, you probably will play it in case of some cards. And I think that there is merit in that, but there's also weakness because that makes you less flexible during the draft. Like,
Certainly.
from what I see in this data so far, and we're going to get to the other parts later, you're definitely not the kind of a person that's drafting the hard way. You will be playing your first pick more frequently. You will be determining your path very early. And this will make you trophy more because you're consistently sticking to your first path. You're going to be trophying more than your win rate is suggesting, but also your win rate is going to be lower because that flexibility in the draft is something that will increase your win rate because you will not end in those kind of 0-3 train wreck of the drafts that frequently. So you might want to consider keeping your eyes more open during the later part of the draft and trying to see if there is some colors that are open. And
Absolutely.
here I think in WoW you were actively biased against some of the colors, and hopefully we'll see that maybe not. There was no merit for being that kind of biased against it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is certainly to detriment to, lock in too early. I think part of that is just the desire to not let too many picks be dead, quote unquote. But yeah, in this day and age, there's so many playables that's just not really the case anymore. And I think staying flexible, you're absolutely right, probably does yield more long-term benefit.
Oh yeah, because even like if you are in pack 1, pick 6, and you have like 3 red cards, 3 black cards, or 2 black cards, you see that there's like some really strong white card.
Yeah.
You can abandon one of those colors if you can pick a strong card, because that strong card is not only saying that, oh, I'm going to get with this one strong card, but it also is sort of saying that it looks like people around me are not interested in this color because that's way too late for that card to be there.
Right.
Which means that you're not betting only for one card, but future rewards are potentially there, especially when you've seen something white already passing you on the way. And maybe you won't be rewarded in the second pack because maybe the people, saw that white was open and went on that train. But pack 3, you should be very much rewarded from for that kind of pivot, and frequently it's going to be worth it. But okay, let's look at your almost beans, which means the cards that you drafted several times, but they never made your deck somehow.
This is going to be a hard one because these are the ones that you don't think about, that you don't see. So I've got to say, I mean, it's got to be just bad removal, probably. I mean, that's hard though, because I've actually started main decking some bad removal in my like green-black decks, like the Shatter of the Oath. So I think if I had to guess, it would probably be like Minecart Daredevil. That's actually a perfect one. Or like, I don't know, or like Merry Bards. Like they're cards that I draft as filler and then often cut.
Okay, let's take a look.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was way off. Okay.
I do think that you didn't play that much of Merry Bards, but I think you did play them. But Kindled Heroism is your number 1, which is strange because it's in red. But even though it's in red, you never were desperate enough to play it.
I just wasn't.
Then you have Leaping Ambush. That's the +1/+3 untap a creature green trick, which is actually not a bad card.
I know it's actually good. I need to actually play.
But you'd probably never play red-green also.
No.
Stormcult Prowler. That's the 2/1 that grows when you cast spells with mana 5. I guess that you get it because it's there as a last pick or something.
Yeah. Just
with your number of drafts, this can be exclusively last picks from some packs.
Yeah, basically.
Break the Spell. a
Oh,
card
I've
that
never
can be
run that
used
spell.
if you don't have any bargain and you need it because you have Princess Takes Flight.
Yeah, no, just literally never run it. I've
And the rest, it's just trash, basically. Corvold and the Noble
oh,
Thief,
total
Soul
trash.
Guide
And
Lantern.
now I will, in defense of spreading seas, I've actually lost games to being totally color screwed to that, and then opponent bargains it off to their Hamlet Glutton. It felt bad.
Did you ever have turn 1 Utopia Sprawl and turn 2 opponent plays Spreading Seas on your forest?
Fortunately, not happened to me, but I've seen the interaction, and that's devastating.
Ow. It is a painful one. Okay. But actually, when you look at those cards, quite reasonable not to play them. And except maybe for the Leaping Ambush, which you should be playing if you're playing green, kind of red-green especially. But also, it frequently will be a life-saving card. It's like the uncommon version that puts a royal rule and gives hexproof.
Right.
Quite frequently, that Leaping Ambush is going to behave very similar because someone will play Cotton, you just make your creature survive, untap it.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
They play a fight spell, you play this, and you win the fight rather than they. So it's actually not a bad card. You don't want to put 3 in your deck, but having one of them is actually not a bad thing to have. If it's not good in black red, which is a problem in your case, I think that why you didn't play it.
Right.
So what do you think? Were there any cards that you have never seen in Wilds of Eldraine draft?
Now this is interesting because I've drafted a lot, so I feel like I've seen most of the cards. There are some cards that I feel like I want to see more often.
Are they are called mythic rares, I assume?
Whatever it's the teamer gold card, Bruna, or yeah,
Baluna, yeah.
yeah. But Baluna, she's got to be. I mean, I think the one time that I had her, I trophied, and it was like the most fun deck ever. And I never get to see her, or I think. No, I do see her. I'm usually, if I see her later, I just don't pick her because it's just like, it's 3 colors. But
I can save you from the misery. You've seen every single card at least 3 times.
Oh my, 3 times.
Because I did some updates on the data, Ashiok is you've only seen Ashiok 4 times.
Sad.
And you picked it every single time, and you played it every single time.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, it goes with rats. It makes bodies.
That's true. But the other card that you've seen less even than Ashiok that I figured out later is Bitter Blossom, which you only saw 3 times.
So sad.
And that does make
one
bodies.
of those was an 03, and it was it was sad.
No, Bitter Blossoms definitely makes bodies, and they are better than rats, I would say.
Oh, they certainly are.
So these are the 2 cards that you've seen the least, but even then you saw them 3 times in terms of Bitter Blossoms. So which cards you have taken almost every time you saw them, and its commons? And by saying almost every time you saw them, I mean the most frequently in terms of percentage.
It's got to be the rat producers. I don't really pass those unless I'm like not in the lane. Otherwise, it's the efficient removal, torch, and grapple probably.
Okay, let's take a look. Ratcatcher Trainee, Edgewell Pack, Voracious Vermin, Candy Grapple, which is a bit shocking to me, honestly.
For the rats deck, it's so important. Only way to
I know, but I would still pick the Candy Grapple and Torch the Tower higher over the Ratcatcher Trainee.
Oh yeah,
and that's just a percentage game because you will never get that Candy Grapple back. You will never have that Torch the Tower return. While Ratcatcher Trainee, Voracious Vermin, they can actually wheel if you open it in the first pack.
They can, but also Candy Grapple and Torch the Tower can't attack to kill your opponent.
That's true, but you will. Your goal is not to every single turn attack. Your goal is to make sure that those attacks can be profitable. True. And Candy Grapple and Torch the Tower will probably enhance their chances of doing it.
That's true.
Still, I mean, I have to bow before the strategy. You definitely picked your lane. I think that prioritizing those high powerful cards that are universally powerful. First of all, it makes your deck more consistently powerful because these are stronger cards. I think Candy Grapple and Torture Tower than either Ratcatcher Trainee or Edgewell Pack. But the second part, more importantly, if you prioritize Candy Grapple and Torture Tower, you're more flexible in the draft.
That is true. This is true.
Because if you pick that Candy Grapple as your first pick, you can move from there to the black-green. You can move to the white-black. You can move to any basically color combination. You can make blue-black control. But if you pick the Ratcatcher Trainee, you are firmly in the lane of drafting black-red rats. And I think that this is something that you are doing potentially too aggressively. And it will cost you the win rate. Like, not being flexible in draft and forcing the same deck is going to cost you the win rate.
It does. It certainly does.
And as long as you do it, consciously and you're happy with that happening, then it's fine. But my duty as a person analyzing the data is to tell you that probably prioritizing specific archetype cards that are very important cards for this archetype over universal cards is going to be costing you the win rate. Yeah. Because in the end, you will end up in pods where people are going to be cutting you off, and you're going to go 0-3 in those. And if you are more picking universal cards, the chance of you getting cut off is lower because you can always pivot to another combination.
That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, obviously, now that I looked at your data, every time I see your name in the pod that I'm drafting, I'm staying off rats, and I'm just going to give them to you and pick something that is not rats, because I'm sure then that at least I'm going to get one friendly drafter that is not going to conflict with my choices. That's fine.
Smart man.
Information. But it's good to know that there is because in the end, you're drafting things, and it's sort of like in the heat of the moment. And I'm sure that you're not counting those things in your head, like, oh, I picked 55% of the time Edgewell Pack. I should ramp those numbers. But there's a clear pattern here that those enablers are super important for you. So you have a method that these are the most important cards I'm going to pick. And you prioritize them in this sort of paint by numbers kind of strategy style. Then you have this removal slot that you also think is very important, but not as important as the enablers.
Right.
And then you have the sort of secondary slot with Knowing Crescendo, Guest, and Spearguard as a sort of like a B tier creatures, and somehow Barrow Naughty.
And I'll actually make a caveat here. So Gnawing Crescendo actually should be much higher up. However, because it's undervalued at most tables, I let it wheel. The reason is basically with the correct amount of enablers and Gnawing Crescendo, it basically renders all of your removal pointless. Because if you have, around 7 or 8 bodies on the ground, there's not much of a board your opponent could even have that would let them live through a Gnawing Crescendo, or God forbid, a double Gnawing Crescendo turn. So in my estimation, the decks where I am feeling most confident about the rat plan are where I've got a lot of enablers and a lot of crescendos, and the decks where I feel like I need a little extra are where I prioritize removal a little more highly if I haven't seen the right combination of enablers and payoffs.
Yeah, the problem starts when you don't see the right number of enablers or crescendos. I every single time I draft rats, I get a perfect rat deck and then 0 crescendos, and I'm like,
it hurts. It hurts because nothing really takes the place. I mean, the best, there's just nothing there's no other trumpet blast effect.
Recruiter, the witch, maybe. I guess.
Oh yeah, because if you haven't seen crescendos, you'll certainly see a recruiter.
It did happen before.
It's strange.
It's just the reality is that every common will have 2.4 copies opened per pod, which means that there will be pod when there's 1 open or 0 even, and then just physically cannot see any.
Yeah.
And maybe you try to wheel that one that you've seen and it doesn't because someone is that kind of a person, you know. So that can easily happen. Okay, what do you think about the uncommons that you take every single time you see them?
Well, we had a little spoiler with the Twisted Sewer Witch. Yeah, it's too tempting to, yeah. So, like I was saying, I guess uncommon Twisted Sewer Witch is the equivalent to the Gnawing Crescendo. It basically is one spell that produces or allows your board to produce more damage than it would otherwise. So, yeah, probably Sewer Witch. And then, oh yeah, Recruiter. It's got to be Recruiter.
It is. You picked it 77% of the time, which is basically forcing the fact that, you know, 23% of the time there can be like a bomb rare that you pick over it. But it basically means that you force picking the Twisted Sewer Witch. And then we have the Recruiter. Then we have Lord Skitter's Butcher. Hello,
Sorry
doggy.
about the dogs. Let me. I think.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Sorry about that. They always freak out.
Dream Thief, Tottentans, Witchstalker Frenzy, High Fey Negotiator, which is sort of, I guess you're treating it as a sort of top-end finisher.
Yeah.
Taken by Nightmares, Vanity, Hearth Elemental. Again, another top-end kind of card that you can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good question in the chat is, how do you feel about Twisted Fealties and Ariet's Apple in this strategy? Do you ever play those cards?
Yeah, so I'm really more likely to take the threatened effects if I've already got a Callous Sellsword. I think Callous Sellsword is the main sack outlet that I want to see because it's 1 mana and has other utility outside of just being a sacrifice outlet. Like, I've tried the Vampiric Rites, obviously Goblin and Barbant, you know, snap up all the threatens. But I've tried the Vampiric Rites. I've tried using Lord Skitter's Butcher as a sack outlet. They're just a little too expensive. Yeah, so I do really like the threaten effects. I'll run them if I'm light on removal or if I don't have enough Gnawing Crescendos. Yeah, I think they're great cards. But I think I like having a more focused effect of I'm antheming my whole team or I'm removing your guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that now we reached the moment when we do the game, and that is card X or Stinkblade Assassin. Which card do you pick more frequently? And by picking more frequently, what I mean is you pick Stinkblade Assassin. I can tell you that so that you know 12.3% of the time when you see it.
Oh, God.
And the question is, do you pick the other card that I selected more frequently or less frequently? So I think the first part is Stinkblade Assassin, the 4-mana 3/1 flash flying that destroys target creature that was dealt damage this turn, or Ingenious Prodigy, the blue and an X 0/1 with Skulk that enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, and you can remove a counter from it at the beginning of your upkeep to draw an extra card. What do you pick more frequently?
It's got to be the Assassin. It's not even close.
It is not even close. 12.3%, as I said, 12.3% for the Assassin. You pick the Ingenious Prodigy only 4% of the time that you see it.
It's
a good card.
I know it's so good.
You're missing on equity there. You could have picked it probably tens of time extra.
I know. And then all those gems too.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? In your case, probably you could have had...
At least another draft, like, maybe 2.
Probably picked it like 5 times out of 100. So you could probably get like 20 times 90. Wow, that's 181. Probably got a draft out of it. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least a draft. Yeah.
Wow.
No, and it's funny because Stinkblade Assassin is such that 24th card or 23rd card where it's like God, I don't want to run this thing, but it's like I don't have anything better, and I might as well just take it. And it has done stuff for me. I mean, it's been fine. God,
Still,
it's just
it still has the dice to flick the coin problem.
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad if they've got that. Oh
Okay.
God. But,
We move to a more complicated one. We have Stinkblade Assassin versus Greta Sweet Tooth Scourge.
now
Which
this
one
one
did
is
you pick?
interesting because I actually do really like black green, and I'm pretty likely to similarly with the rat producers. I'm likely to take food producers just about at the same frequency if I'm in a food lane. I might go with Greta on this, but I think it's wrong. I think it's probably Assassin, but I want to hope that it's Greta. Oh no, no! Oh, that's horrible.
Only 7% of the time you pick Greta, and I think that
Oh,
while your logic is very good for pack one, when you open Greta in pack one, pick one, you will pick her. But probably in pack three, you're so deep into black red in most of your drafts that you just pass the Gretas in pack three almost
yeah.
every single time.
That's I think that's the thing. I tend to go for this card is going to make my black red deck versus this is a card that I would need to splash for.
Exactly. All right. Well, 1-1 so far. I managed to bamboozle you at least once.
Oh, that's super hard. Oh no.
I didn't say it was
black
easy.
4-drops.
I didn't say it was easy.
Oh, that's so difficult. Okay, my logic here is that I do just like with Greta, I take Fell Horseman in all of my black archetypes, whereas Stingblade only goes in red black. I'm never going to take Stingblade if I'm green black. Oh,
Okay. So which one?
I think I'm going to go Fell Horseman. I've picked more. Oh, it's so close! No, dang it! Oh, that was so hard.
11% versus 12.3, which is very close, but still you pick the Stingblade Assassin slightly higher. And not slightly higher, slightly more frequently when you see it.
I must be just hyper overvaluing the evasion. I think that's just all that it is.
We're gonna go to it in a second. The game has a purpose. Okay,
Yeah, this is great.
Here we have Stinkblade Assassin versus Sugar Rush, the classic 2-mana +3/+0 draw a card combat Drake.
Now, before I came across non-crescendo at the start of the format, I was thinking that Sugar Rush was the premier like rat trick. So I may have drafted it a good bit at the start of the format. However, since time has gone on, I don't really take single tricks hardly at all in favor of, just trying to find the crescendos. So this is going to be Stingblade Assassin. Oh, damn it! Oh, no! Oh, you set me up so horribly.
Totally winning that one. 3-1. There's still one more that you can get as an honorary extra point, but you picked Sugar Rush 15% of the time you've seen the card, which is quite high actually when you think about it.
Yeah, the hook and cut. Wow. No, I that's totally, yeah. Oh, now this one, this I know. No, there's no fooling me on this. I am a diehard Skewer Slinger supporter. I think the card is actively what I want in a good number of my decks, and it doesn't.
All right, you can get it. You can get it.
Yeah,
I already won the game.
I'll take the free one. It's not even close to being close.
3-2. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you picked the 20% of the time you saw it, which is actually quite a high number. So I was wondering if you are a big fan of the card, but now that you say that you are, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, I mean, it just completely dunks on anything with 1 toughness, and anyone who forgets and tries to run a trick out, and then they watch their thing die in front of them. Oh, it's marvelous.
Ouch. But there was a whole point of this game. So the point of that was that 12.5, and I picked the card with the 12.3 on purpose here. 12.5 is a particular number for picking up the card. Like if there was a worst card ever, and here I depicted the worst card ever, 12 mana for a legendary creature, 1/1. And if you draft that card, not if you play it, if you just draft that card, you will lose your next 3 matches. you will still pick this card 12.5% of the time. Because you'll be forced to pick it as a last pick so frequently. If it would be opened in the wrong place, you would get your pack, and this is the only thing that is left there, and you would say, "Damn, I have to draft it. There is no choice of me." Which means that cards that are drafted at around 12.5% of the time are the cards that maybe all the drafters at the table are not keen on drafting for some reason because they're poor. Like Stingblade Assassin, which is not great, or like Sugar Rush, or like the Fell Horseman, the cards that are not amazing, so they would just go till the end and no one is going to be super interested in them. The cards that are actually interesting are the cards like, in your case, Ingenious Prodigy, because this means that it's below 12.5% in your case. This means that you are rating this card way lower than the rest of the community because they will pick it and you will not. So everything under 12.5 for me is an interesting card from the aspect of difference between someone's evaluation and the community evaluation. I, for example, had very frequently like very small numbers of this percentage for pacifism effects in some sets because I maybe don't think that they're bad, completely useless, but people were so high on them that I could never draft them at the level that was happy for me. And because of that, I never drafted them. So I was at like 0% that I've drafted those things because I want to pick it at pick 7 and it never gets to pick 7. It gets picked before pick 4. In your case, well, you don't play that much blue. So Ingenious Prodigy, you picked very rarely because you see it. You pick something in red and black and then you will never see it again because it's going to be picked quite highly. Or Greta, you say that you are in the food decks, but not as frequently as in the red-black decks. Therefore, in pack 3, you will almost never pick it because you are not in the right spot. So this is a good introduction to see which cards you picked almost never. And I think that I split them in common and uncommon, but I'm not sure. So guess the commons first, and then we'll see.
All right. Commons, the cards that I pick never.
Almost never. It means, and they have to be like quite large chunk that you've seen them, but you rarely pick them. Right. Now, keep in mind, cards like Kindle Heroism or whatever it's called, these are not the cards that you pick never. You actually pick them frequently because you are forced to pick them as last picks. So these will have to be the cards that you never pick because other people will pick them, but you won't.
So you're saying this won't be the Fog, because I was thinking this would be the Fog, the like eerie interlude or whatever. But
yeah, no. maybe at uncommon even this because that card can get as a last pick.
No,
but in commons, think like some things that probably will be blue cards in there because you are not super happy drafting blue, like good blue cards maybe.
Yeah, a good blue card like I mean
we're talking. Covalent band. We're talking commons first. I think I'd split them in commons.
I think commons first. Yeah, that's the thing. Is I actually do. It's funny. The things that I like about blue are the card draw. So I don't pass hatching clans if I'm in blue. So it's like I know it's not going to be any like bargain stuff because I like that stuff in blue. Honestly,
I can't help you because I don't remember what was there, and I don't have the next slide visible for myself. So
cards that I pick almost never. Probably like a probably like quick study. Yeah, I actively kind of avoid quick study.
Okay, that's something.
Yeah, because the other blue draw spells are just so much better. Yeah, let's go! Let's go!
The actual Sleight of Hand is a specific card that probably is not played that frequently. I think that actually the biggest surprise for me was Ventress Transmuter. That card you definitely actively don't draft while other people pick it.
Yeah,
I actually don't mind playing that card at all.
No, I've picked that up a little bit more in my blue-green decks. Yeah,
Kellen's Light Blades.
Oh, I hate that card. I never take it.
You hate that card because you probably don't play the deck that the card is good in.
That's the thing. It's really good in the reactive decks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Moment of Valor, this similar
Yeah.
kind of situation as Kellen Light Blades. And Quick Study was bang on call for you there.
Yeah, that was a tough one because I was like, it's gonna be a tricky one because I like drawing cards in blue, but I like the other card draws so much better. Yeah,
And also, Quick Study is quite a high pick for most people.
that's interesting. Huh.
Taking into account that it's in blue, obviously, so it's not like super, super high, but
Yeah.
it's a relatively highly picked blue card. Okay, uncommons then.
Ooh, okay. Well, that's
And I think I remember a couple of the ones that made my eyebrow go slightly up.
yeah. This kind of makes my I'm thinking that it's gonna be some bonus sheet stuff. I think potentially, and I think it's gonna be. I don't know. It'll be something. Is compulsion? That's a blue bonus sheet card. That's an uncommon. Probably something like that.
Sorry, I was trying to participate with the chat while you were thinking.
No, you're fine.
Like, there are a couple of. There's the eerie interference. You definitely passed that one. The one card that
Yeah.
surprised me was Johan. You only picked
yeah.
it 3.4 times. This is a good card. This is an actively
It
good
is
card.
good. It is good.
What else is there? Luckily, most of those cards are not great, but Johan definitely was a surprising one for me.
Yeah. No, and this makes sense. Is a lot of these. Let's see. No, I think so. The cards that I feel bad about are Johan because it does draw you cards. It's good, and I actually think Dutiful Griffin is a good beater. I'm kind of sad about that because I feel like I like that card.
It's sad how the mighty have fallen because that's basically aerial elemental.
It's a dragon.
It's
It's
like
a 5-mana 4/4
a role
flyer.
player.
Yeah. But these other ones make sense.
Exactly.
So, like,
yeah.
Yeah, like Gadwick's First Duel, Stroke of Midnight, like these are bad cards. I don't think it's mincing words to say these, or Gadwick's First Duel like might have a home, but in general it's something you're not excited to play, and Stroke of Midnight is just flat out. I mean,
No,
so
definitely.
that does make sense. It's these very poor rate cards that
yeah. I think Stroke of Midnight is a good best of 3 sideboard card. That's about it.
Yeah. Can deal with the bomb.
Like, can you imagine playing Stroke of Midnight against you, and you're just like 1/1/1/1/1/1/1/1/1,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to
disastrous,
kill your rat to upgrade it to a human.
But
Sucks.
yeah, really good against like someone who's theoretically just trying to hold off the ground with one big blocker. Yeah,
exactly. If I play like against someone that plays like 4 Hamlet Gluttons, I'm happily playing Stroke of Midnight in multiple copies against them. But before knowing that, I'm not happy to do it. So I think it's more like a sideboard card for some kind of a controlling deck.
Absolutely.
Or maybe even aggressive deck that has a problem with a big blocker.
Yeah, great point.
Okay. Okay, we finished the draft portion. We can talk about the gameplay. And this is going to be much shorter. The draft part, I think that the draft part, in terms of the data, I can tell just so much more that I focus on the draft part a bit more. I think that people in general are too focused on gameplay. That is hard to fix with looking at the data only. You need to really do the reps. And people are fixated on deck building, which, it's important, of course, but deck building is the result of your drafting. Exactly. And it's in the drafting that you're going to fix your deck building because you're going to build better decks by drafting cards in the right orders. But
precisely.
That's why I'm focusing on that. But obviously, we do have some win rate. So we're going to talk about win rate in time and win rate in terms of the color preference. So that will be something more about you than anything. And then we're going to talk about the card win rates a bit. So we're going to look at the game played win rate and game in hand win rate of the cards that you have. But first, I have to introduce the concept of the running average. And the problem with the data for winning is that you either win or you lose. So if you plot your wins and your losses on the graph, you have a bunch of ones and a bunch of zeros, and it looks like nothing.
Right.
So in order to do that, I do something called running averages. When I take this snapshot of 10 games, and I calculate the win rate for this,
Sure.
or average for this,
Okay.
and then I move the square by 1, so I lose this measurement and add this measurement, and I calculate
Sure.
the average for that. And I do that like for each of those cards in those frames.
Sure.
And then something like this becomes something like this, which is easier to read.
Right. That's wow, that's wonderful.
And for you, my window is going to be wider, so I'm going to look at your win rate for the 100 games, and it's going to move across all the hundreds of games that you've been playing. So how do you think that your win rate was looking throughout the format? Like, where did your win rate spike, and where did your win rate was the lowest?
I started off, I think, strong, and then had a dip. Certainly, I would say that probably maybe 4 weeks into the format might have been my most winningest. 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
How far into?
Well, we're
We're 5 weeks in now.
Yeah, that would be the end. Yeah, I think that you had 35 or 6 days, so maybe you had 5 weeks in total of the whole data.
I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure my best period has been my most recent. I think it's been in like the last few weeks, probably.
Let's take a look. Generally, there's been a dip after a week and a half, roughly. That's been your deep dip when you were going down to 35%.
Everyone found out that rats were good.
Then we're gonna see that if that's true. Then you had this big spike, and then you sort of stabilized, and honestly you had the maybe slight dip, and now you're moving towards the sort of like a better average. I would say that this was the second dip around week 3-4, and now you are roughly okay. Unfortunately, data was cut off when you were like having potential another spike of your win rate, so I don't know how it went after that. But,
no worries, that's good.
But yeah, definitely your peak was here at around 18th and 19th of September.
Interesting.
So Pablo Picasso was famous for the fact that he had multiple periods in his career when he was actively picking certain type of color and using it to pretty large success in his paintings. He had this blue period when all his paintings were with this blue tint. He had this rose period when there was plenty of use of pink in his paintings. You are not Pablo Picasso, but Pasta Pirate also starts with double P. So I thought maybe there are some parallels. Do you think you had your particular color periods during the season?
I think
and
certainly.
Color period, by color periods, of course, I mean overplaying a particular color.
Sure.
Or two of them even.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear it's red black for me. Red is the specific emphasis there. There were, I think I had a really successful mono red draft at the start and felt like there was enough of a core of red cards there to try to pursue that. So I think red has often been my base, and yeah, but looking at my data, black, I think, has also been very persistent, just because I've drafted all of my top two color pairs have been pairs with black, basically.
Okay, let's take a look. So I colored those graphs in the colors of the cards, basically.
That's cool.
This is the time when you were definitely black-red all the way. Literally 100% of your decks at some stage, looking at 100 games, were red-black at that stage. Here you had maybe, like 80% of the black decks and 100% of the red blacks. Even in this period, the 70% of the red and black decks. Here, 70% of the red and black decks.
That's so
and you had this moment here that you were drafting green, and I think that this was, if I'm not mistaken, roughly where win rate was the poorest. And I think that
Yes.
swap to drafting more red at that stage defined your whole format.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said earlier, where I wanted to dip my toe into the green decks. I was rudely awakened and did not return to those until.
Well, you did return to it in the end in October, when roughly half of your decks were green, and this was also like heavy black period for you. So I assume that most of the time you were drafting either rats or green black.
More value, yeah, a lot more value stuff.
Okay, and of course there is a way of looking at, because the axes are exactly the same on those graphs, so we can actually look through the win rates and the spikes and the lows and compare them with the colors.
Yeah.
And here you see that this is your dip in the win rate down to 35% across 100 games. And this is the times when you were drafting those green decks, probably was linked to each other. Then you started drafting red decks and it bounced back to almost 60% win rate. I think you had like a good streak of red decks that were winning a lot, and from then on you never looked back, and it was red black all the way, which is reasonable, but also it might indicate that you are very much results oriented, and by that you might fall into a trap that, oh well, this deck worked fine for me several times, I will just draft it all the time right now. And it can hurt your win rate at some level, because here you also had this kind of reversion to the mean. So you had started with 60%, it went down to your average 50% at some stage, but you still continue drafting those red black decks, despite dipping below 40% somewhere here even for some reason. So yeah. It's still very interesting what's going on in there, but you definitely were skewed heavily towards red black.
Yeah.
So what do you think was your highest win rate color combination?
This one's really easy, actually. Overall, my highest 2-color combination win rate is I think it might be blue white, just from a sample size perspective.
Oh wait, because normally I just do the percentages, but I also will show just to show the people how much of black red you drafted. These are the number of games with each 2-color combination, and this is black red, and then somewhere there white green, blue black.
It's a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, but I had known that my worst performing color combination was white red, like by a very wide margin. And I don't know why it is, if it's because I played too much red black and I'm just too used to that style of red aggression, but
potentially I think that you're also having you didn't prioritize the white aggressive cards highly, and I think that might have been one of the reasons. But just to show that probably you play more black-red than all the other color combinations combined, which is mad. But
it's pretty wild.
But someone who drafts 300 drafts in a format, madness is probably part of the equation.
It is,
because these are insane numbers. But okay, yes. White blue is your highest win rate color combination.
Yep.
Then it's black red, which at least you're doing the one stuff that you're doing so much quite well. And then you're right, white red is the one that you had a very low win rate, 24%, which is keep in mind these are only 25 games.
It's still dismal. It's I can't win with it.
Well, it's maybe if you drafted 950 white-red decks,
true,
you would have had a higher win rate, because you
did. Is true.
The number of replicates of the black-red deck that you did is truly amazing. It's like you probably understand how it operates at the level that very few people do, because you tested all card combinations so many times. It's just that. Your problem is that you also drafted it when it was absolutely cut off, and you just went for it bravely because you stabilized what you're drafting too early, possibly.
Yeah.
And then all the other colors are sort of between 40 and 47%, which For black green, that could probably do better if you
Yeah.
again invested so much time drafting black red as you could. But again, because you are prioritizing those very rat specific cards so highly, it's sometimes even hard for you to pivot away from the black red decks, and then because of that you will not practice the other colors so frequently. So now we have the card win rates, and we're going to be looking at top win rates of the cards when they are in your deck. It doesn't mean that you have to draw them, just the fact that they are in your deck. What do you think is going to be on top there?
So we're saying top win rate for cards in my deck.
Yeah. Any rarity, but it has to be there at least 50 times.
Okay, and we're saying regardless of sample size?
It has to be at least 50 times in your deck.
Right. Okay. I wonder if it's a removal spell. I bet it's so for common. Honestly, no, it's gonna be non-crescendo.
Okay, let's
I think it's gonna be non-crescendo for common.
It's actually not dead after all for a common, by the way. Interestingly, 61% of the decks that had not that 61% the win rate when not dead after all was in your deck.
The card is good. Yeah.
It's actually Charade of the Numbing Depths, the card that totally has in total has the highest win rate when it's in your deck, 61.8%. You already seen that white blue decks were the ones with the highest win rate.
Yep.
For you, and that probably is part of the reason.
Yep.
Then we have a couple of rares. We have the Lord Skitter and Devouring Sugar Maw.
Yep.
Then for some absolutely wild reason, Tempest Heart.
Oh, I love that card. I play a lot of the 5-drop stuff.
Okay. Vampiric Rites, which you said that you discarded it quickly, actually work quite well in your decks.
Yeah.
As a potentially not even as a steal and sack, but just as a sack and draw a card kind of mechanism. And then you have the Twisted Sewer Witch, Song of Tottentons, and another part of the blue-white deck in Threadbind Clique, and also Scolding Viper just randomly.
That's a great card. Yeah,
it is a great card. Yeah, it just like doesn't seem like part of any pattern, but you see that at least you see which cards from the red-black deck were important for you. Sewer Witch, you can frown about you prioritizing it as high as you do, but it is one of your highest win rate cards. So
she does work for me.
there is method in this madness. But of course, Song of Tottentons, Lord Skitter are just premium cards.
Yep.
For your deck.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe you the Not Dead After All is better than you think in your deck.
It's been so good with an Edgewall pack. I mean, it's just just beef. Yeah, it's great.
And it's so easy to leave 1 mana, especially when you have additional rat outs as well.
Precisely. Yeah.
Because people will be playing around the rat out, but not necessarily around the Not Dead After All.
Yeah. Sam Black made a good point about that. It's basically when you have creatures with good ETBs, it is basically giving you, not only are you getting the ETB, but you're also getting the roll. And then, it's just that's a lot of value.
Okay. What do you think were the cards that you played in your decks with the worst win rate?
Worst win rates. Oh God. And we're saying when I was playing them, not just like their global win rate.
No, when you were playing them. These are all the cards that you. I mean, these numbers are also your numbers. These are exclusively from your games. Yeah.
So cards that I played with the worst win rate. Oh, it's got to be like one of the do nothing enchantments, like Impact Trimmers or Raidbin Barman, because like sometimes those cards do make my deck, and maybe they shouldn't. So
okay, let's take a look.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I was right about the Mary Bards. Dumb card.
I like it.
I like it too. It just never works for me.
Always
wow, that's like so funny.
Massive rat or something.
So it goes from Boundary Lands Ranger. So I played Boundary Lands Ranger a lot, and it just doesn't do well for me.
Well, because your things are all 1/1s, so you
Yeah,
will
I
never
think
get rummage.
I pick it up as a filler 2-drop that just sometimes makes my deck, and if it's made my deck, it means I haven't gotten the right 2-drops.
I mean, looking at what cards you play, you're probably better off playing Tavern Swindler in your decks than the Boundary Lands Ranger because
I know. It's ridiculous.
I guess that you try to play some kind of white-green aura decks with
It
the
never works.
Genealogists, Clothiers, and the Knight of Doves, and that didn't work very well.
It never works for
Given those
me.
numbers. Frantic Firebolt is just because probably you play them when you have the worst version of your red-black deck.
It's literally just, I have no other removal. I'm running this to have a way to interact with my opponent's board.
Exactly. And then Return Triumphant and Armory Mice are potentially...
Those are failed Boros attempts.
Exactly. Your failed Boros attempts.
Or failed Selesnya. It's either the green-white and red-white. I'm just could not be worse with.
And the Catapult?
Yeah, and the Catapult's interesting because, again, it's in that Boundary Lands Ranger camp where it makes it into the bad versions of my black-red decks for ID playables. And it strangely is on plan, just in terms of, I guess, unblockable damage, but it's off plan in that it doesn't attack itself and doesn't block it. Yeah, just bad.
Okay, then now we can look at the Cayman hand win rate.
Mm.
So what cards were the most successful when you drew them?
So I think, like we've seen, I've done really well with the rat enhancers. So it's predicated on I've got a large board of rats. I just need X to break through the board. That X is probably Gnawing Crescendo or Twisted Sewer Witch. Yeah, so I would say those are probably the most successful when I drew them. Or it could be removal, but again with the charade.
Not only the decks that you have with charade are the ones that win the most for you, but also just drawing charade. When you draw it, 77% win rate.
I'm the secret blue-white master. I've been missing out all along.
You are definitely a secret blue-white mage. But then we have this Lord Skitter and Twisted Sewer Witch. Again, yeah. Twisted Sewer Witch, 66% win rate when you draw it. Again, criticize all you want your love for the Twisted Sewer Witch, but it seems to be working very well for you.
It's so good.
Then we have a tough cookie, which I guess is when you have the most successful versions of the green-black deck, I guess, yeah. and it's so important to draw it in those things.
Yeah.
Charming Scoundrel, which is a solid rare for exactly on plan for your rat strategy.
Great little card.
Threadbind Click, another quite good, probably part of the time when you play charade, and Threadbind Click is important. And then you identify that the deck is open and you draft a good version of it because you pick charade and you pick Threadbind Click, so you played the sort of like controlling version of it. That's probably also when Kellen Lightblades are good in those type of decks.
Yeah, they are good in those. Yeah.
Obira Attendance, which is sort of the 3/4 that gives -4/-0. You have decent result with this card, but probably you played not much of it.
Yeah, 3/4 flyer, it's gotten the job done. Yeah, often.
And then we have Recruiter, Song of Tottentuns, which are obvious, but also Twisted Fealty does pretty well. I think that you don't need to a lot of time, you don't need to focus on the fact that you need to sacrifice that creature.
Exactly.
If you build your rat decks aggressively enough, you will...
Game just ends.
Sometimes just casting it is just enough. You create one good attack, and then you will have a second mediocre attack, but it will be lethal, so that's fine.
Exactly. It's like the overrun effect, where it's like, you're not quite dead, but you're just about dead now. So.
Yeah, it's like a good pseudo crescendo-ish.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, taking a glutton, that's the dream scenario. Yeah,
that's a lovely scenario. And it has very good numbers for you. 61% with your win rate, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So now let's look at the cards that are least successful when you draw them in your capable hands. Which cards do you think that underperform in in your decks.
So these are the thorns in my side. These are the ones that are dragging me down.
Yeah, I mean, the important part of that is here. If we see some cards from your rat deck, then maybe you will identify some of the cards that you maybe think are good, but maybe are not, and maybe you should rethink them.
Yeah.
I don't remember if there are any because, as you remember, we were rushing that last slide seconds before the episode. But let's see.
I really love when I get packages of Baronauties, but I'm wondering if I might be overvaluing that card. Because I think I've had successful drafts where it's like, oh, I've got 3 Baronauties in my black-red deck, and I've got, life-linking persistent damage. And then other times I'll like try to draft them, and then it's just like, okay, here's my 1/3 flyer that has no other text. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, so I think it could be Baronauti.
Okay, let's take a look.
Oh, it's not there. Interesting.
No, it's there, but there's definitely the Boundary Lands Ranger.
Boundary Lands.
And there are your bards that you hate so much.
Yeah, I really do hate those cards.
I wonder why, because I have pretty decent recollection of how this card works in my red aggressive decks. I like putting a counter on the Ginger Brute, putting a counter on a random rat, putting a counter on the Witcher to make it a 3/2 first striker.
It's a great card. I think my issue is that it's a 4-drop and not a 3-drop. I think my 4s end up getting a little tight with Edgewall pack.
Oh yeah, because you play a ton of Edgewall packs. That's true. Then we have the Fell Horseman that you pick less than the Assassin, but that's fine. Two-Headed Hunter is an interesting one here.
I don't understand that at all, because I actually love being able to go crescendo Two-Headed Hunters, adventure trick. I mean, that's won me a good number of games. So I wonder if it's maybe when I end up having to play the creature, then things aren't going well. I wonder if that has to do with it. Because is this counting it for the adventure or just the creature?
No, it counts. It doesn't count when you cast it. It counts when it's in your hand.
Oh, sorry, but it's in my hand.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you cast it or not, or how you cast it. It just games that it's been in your hand.
Right. So
I guess that double strike is maybe not so great in the decks that you're making because most of the decks are one. So it needs to be specifically combined with the knowing crescendo, and then maybe if we would calculate the win rate when both of the cards have been in your hand, it will be higher. Because I like Two-Headed Hunter, for example, in my red-green aggressive decks that are combat trick based, and also maybe have Up the Beanstalk as a card draw engine.
Right, and not to mention native trample on those green creatures. That's so much better with double strike.
Oh yeah, but native trample, that's true. But there's also lots of monstrous rolls, and there is this little friend of the Two-Headed Hunter called Titanic Growth, which can just sucker punch you from nowhere really, and that's the game basically. But Scarecrow Guide.
That's funny.
Not posting great numbers for you there.
I think, that one, like I said, I take it often to hedge for a splash, but I think if my deck is really good and I've got, a red cap thief or a grabby giant that I can make a treasure with, I don't need to run the Scarecrow Guide. So my good versions don't have to run it. So it makes sense that it would be doing poorly.
Yeah, we would have to go back to the very beginning of the presentation, but this was one of your most played cards, or most drafted cards. But you play it rarely. You play it like less than half of the time that you pick it. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
And then when you pick it, it doesn't work like super.
It just dies to everything, and it doesn't do anything.
Spellscorn Coven also. I guess you didn't have great results with blue-black decks.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had a couple decent blue-black decks, but I think for the most part, it just feels like I'm getting outclassed on rate, just in terms of, I think I'm trying to build my black-blue decks a little too tempo heavy, and I need to be focusing more on it, like a controlling game where I'm stabilizing, getting to the late game where I can Spellsworn cover your thing and not having
I managed to get an aggressive version of blue black once, I put the list on my Twitter. You can check later.
I'll
But
check that out.
that's
Sure.
been like super aggressive one. But it happened once, and it only went 4-3. But I was very unlucky. I was very unlucky with mana, but it was, I think, better
Yeah.
deck than the result suggests, and it was
Yeah.
quite sweet. But it takes a lot to build an aggressive version of blue black. Lots of cards have to be passed to you, and it has to be very, very open.
It's got to be
But
so.
yeah, controlling decks you can build much more frequently. They are going to
Right.
be open much more frequently than the aggressive one, because the problem is that there are so few cards that are aggressive in blue black, and you
Exactly.
need to basically have all of them,
Precisely.
and that for that you need to be slightly lucky in the draft that they are
Yeah.
so open. Okay, conclusions. How did you find that introspective? Did you find it interesting / informative / cringy and / uncomfortable? It can be all of those things.
Well, I think it's for a lot of people that would be difficult, but for me, this is the world I live in. This is my bed, and I've made it. Now it's time to sleep in it. This is my data, and I must own it for better or for worse. And you can't get better as a player until you can look at yourself in the mirror like this. So yeah, I love it.
So I think my main conclusion from looking at your data would be this lack of flexibility during draft. Do you think you're going to experiment next format a bit more with drafting the hard way?
I definitely think so, and I've been doing that actually a lot with. I've been drafting a lot of Shadows Remastered this week and trying to just be more flexible. Not necessarily locking in on my first pick. Yeah, and in Wilds, I've also been trying to be more flexible. Not always honing in. I think my issue was for a good portion of my rat period was getting into rats on the basis of a common. Whereas now, I think I generally try to wait for a higher rarity card like Sewer Witch to get me in. Because without those higher rarity payoffs, I feel like you're just like we saw, you're spinning your wheels and not ending up with a good result.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that there will be any other type of data that you would be willing to learn about yourself? Like what kind of data you think would be interesting for you to?
Yeah, so I think the data that would be really interesting for me to see is something I guess that I most recently gained access to from being a Patreon or a patron of 17 Lands is my win rate over time. It's basically my goal to just increase my skill as a Magic player, represented with win percentage. And so the higher I can get that and being able to notice trends of, that over time, that's been really helpful. And so I think I'd like to see that, but also in correlation with my trophy rate. Because like we were saying, my trophy rate is too high for my win rate. I mean, theoretically. So yeah, I think just getting deeper into this, debate of
which I think is the basically good indicator for someone that is too quickly settling into their draft. And funny part, I mean, I don't know how funny is that really. This is not the time for humor. I'm also one of those players. I think I have a higher win rate, higher trophy rate than I should have for my win rate. For most formats at least, and that also has to do with something with like this positive kind of drafting. I'm not as stuck on drafting one archetype as you have been this format, but I definitely do tend to lock the lane earlier. I will lock the lane, like within the first pack, while some people are still open deep into the pack too, and that helps them to salvage some of the drafts that I'm losing. But on the other hand, I trophy more where they wouldn't, because they would still be dirtling while I'm perfectly nicely locked, and 50% of the time I'll be right. But that definitely, this is something that lots of people can learn independently of their personal win rate. Damn it.
Sorry, I might have missed all of your ending.
No, something went wrong with my microphone, disconnected itself. But okay, it was not nothing important. So that
Okay.
I said before we go to the acknowledgements, I have one last question to you, and that is, what is your favorite pasta?
Ooh, favorite pasta?
You're
I'm
a pasta
really
pirate.
I'm partial to a pappardelle. I got to stick with the alliteration. I got to go with the pappardelle.
Pasta pirate likes pappardelle with what sauce? Because
Oh, that'd have to be like a really Parmesan forward like bolognese. Yeah, it'd have to be like just a really rich bolognese. I love
so if
it.
you're a lover of pappardelle, I would like to recommend you make a ragu, but less tomatoey than the bolognese, and
Right.
as a meat use wild boar,
Oh,
and that's
it's
the
so
best
good.
pappardelle that you can do. Find like a wild boar ragu, and then do that with pappardelle. You will never look back for that because it's just phenomenal
I'm
in
so
terms
glad
of.
you said that.
But okay, I'm super glad that you found time to be a guest. I was super stoked to be talking with someone that you know it's very hard to analyze some Black's data because obviously Sam Black does what Sam Black does. It was amazing experience to look through your data because I think that's the struggling with finding your lanes. This is something that more people can connect with, and I think that it's more understandable what you're going through to a player like me or like people in the chat when they look through your data. So, Fer, thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. Where can people find you, and how frequently?
I try to stream on twitch.tv / the pasta pirate. Yeah, I try to stream just about once a week if I can. And whenever I'm off stream, I'll always be posting my trophy decks to Twitter, or X. And yeah, you can find me there at the pasta pirate as well. Yeah, again, this has just been such an honor to come and be a guest here. So thank you again so much for reaching out and having me on. This has been so much fun.
And just as a last word, obviously none of this would be possible without the 17 Lands team, who personally delivered me the Pasta Pirate data so I could analyze it, which was nice of them. So thanks
That's
to Viral
awesome.
Misnomer and the team. Also thanks to Fake Jake Brown, who is my the person that does help a lot into running this as a podcast, especially, and helping me in general advice, and not to me only, but to many other content creators. He's amazing in being a support and advisor in content creation. So shout out to them. And thanks to SSQ and Mana Junkie for the music I'm using for the podcast. So kudos to them. And of course, to the patrons. Thank you very much, all of you. And to mtgazone.com for helping with the sponsoring of this program. And with that, I'll see you next week.